We often talk about narcissism as if it's purely an individual personality flaw. But narcissism doesn't develop in a vacuum. It's shaped, reinforced, and sometimes rewarded by culture. Certain cultures, especially those that prioritize status, hierarchy, performance, obedience, or image, can unintentionally encourage narcissistic traits, even if they do not intend to. Not always the loud, grandiose narcissism we associate with arrogance. Often it's the quiet kind: emotional avoidance, entitlement without accountability, fragility around shame, difficulty with empathy, and over-reliance on external validation. In many collectivist or honor-based cultures, emotional expression is limited, not because emotions don't exist, but because they're unsafe to express. Children learn early: don't talk back, don't question authority, don't embarrass the family, don't show anger, sadness, or vulnerability. Instead of learning emotional language, they learn emotional suppression. And when emotion is suppressed rather than processed, it doesn't disappear, it shows up sideways. It can show up as emotional immaturity, defensiveness, passive aggression, control, difficulty with intimacy, or narcissistic defenses designed to protect the self from shame. Language plays a huge role here. In some cultures, there is limited emotional vocabulary, fewer words to describe internal states, nuanced feelings, or psychological experiences. Take Thai culture, for example. Thai communication often emphasizes harmony, politeness, and emotional restraint. There are rich words for respect, hierarchy, and social positioning, but comparatively fewer everyday terms used to name internal emotional experiences like resentment, grief, ambivalence, or emotional abandonment. When a culture lacks language for emotional complexity, people don't magically become less emotional. They become less emotionally articulate. When you can't name what you feel, you can't regulate it. When you can't regulate it, you defend against it. And one of the most common defenses is narcissism. Not narcissism as cruelty, but narcissism as self-protection. Love bombing fits into this cultural picture as well. Love bombing is often described as a narcissistic tactic. Excessive attention, intensity, idealization, and rapid emotional closeness. But in some cultures, these behaviors are not only normalized, they're romanticized. In cultures that value intensity, passion, fate, sacrifice, or rapid commitment, love bombing can be mistaken for devotion, masculinity, seriousness, or real love. Especially when emotional language is limited, intensity becomes a substitute for intimacy. Instead of slowly building emotional attunement, people learn to perform closeness through grand gestures, constant contact, early declarations of love, possessiveness framed as protection. This creates fertile ground for narcissistic dynamics because love bombing doesn't require emotional depth, empathy, or accountability. It requires performance. Patriarchy adds another layer to this. In cultures where patriarchal values are more openly reinforced, vulnerability in men is often discouraged or shamed. Boys are taught to prioritize strength, dominance, stoicism, and emotional control. But vulnerability is essential for emotional development. When men are not allowed to feel fear, grief, shame, or emotional need, those feelings don't disappear, they become defended against. Power and control replace emotional literacy. This increases the likelihood of narcissistic behaviors, emotional distance, entitlement, difficulty with accountability, and intolerance of criticism. Not because men are inherently narcissistic, but because emotional repression is structurally rewarded. This is how emotionally stunted adults are created. Feelings were discouraged, vulnerability was unsafe, dependency was shamed, autonomy was punished, and emotional literacy was never taught. So instead of emotional attunement, people learn achievement, reputation, obedience, saving face. From the outside, this can look like confidence or composure. On the inside, it's often profound emotional underdevelopment. This doesn't mean a culture is bad, it means every culture transmits both strengths and wounds. Many people raised in emotionally restrictive cultures are deeply loyal, hardworking, respectful, and resilient, but they may struggle with intimacy, accountability, emotional repair, tolerating criticism, or holding space for another person's inner world. Healing isn't about rejecting culture, it's about expanding emotional language beyond what was given. Learning to say, I feel hurt, I feel unseen, I feel ashamed, I feel overwhelmed. These sentences are revolutionary in cultures where silence once meant survival. Narcissism at its core isn't excessive self-love, it's arrested emotional development. And emotional maturity doesn't come from culture alone, it comes from learning the language of the inner world. If you've been questioning whether it's you or whether something in the culture has been distorting what love, boundaries, and entitlement are supposed to look like, you're not imagining it. We're living in a culture that rewards self-focus, emotional extraction, and image over integrity. Inside my course, Aligned Love, I teach you how to recognize narcissistic and controlling patterns early, separate confidence from entitlement, build boundaries that protect you in a culture that pressures you to overgive, choose partners based on character and compatibility, not charm or intensity. You can learn more and enroll using the link below.